we run quite a number of research projects, and we run a lot of different kind of projects. Not a single research project or a single research paper was initiated purely from textbook. We always had an industry partner who told us something was wrong in that industry. And all our project was actually informed by industrial partner instead of purely informed by the knowledge base. Remember one of the internet memes, like two pigs were talking to each other. One of them saying that, look at this pig's factory, it's so great, we get free food and drink. And the other one was saying that, yes, because we are the product.
Exactly.
I'm afraid
my God. Yeah,
in the normal internet economy, you and I are products. And that's why I think we started that research project to look at if we build personal-owned personal data, controlled by ourselves, authenticated by ourselves, and use this to generate intelligence for the internet giants to actually render a service. What would it look like as an ecosystem, as an economic system, as an economic model? And for the service providers, what does it look like for different kind of business models to exist? For us, at least for my program, every student must use AI. And you must use AI almost as your benchmark level to write a piece of thesis or a piece of dissertation that you wanted to write. Reason being that that's almost the everyday level. If your performance is at par with AI, in today's environment, you're close to fail. Knowledge acquisition is not something we can teach these days anymore. However, as I said, at this level, the adoption of that knowledge, the utilization of that knowledge in a particular context is actually harder. The execution is a lot harder. So we create an environment for people to execute. So we teach them how to fish instead of give them a fish. So they must try. And we create an environment where they can fail safely before the failure becomes too expensive. A few years back, I think it was probably one of the most enjoyable conversations he had with his dad, but probably one of the saddest things he had with his dad as a conversation-wise is he told his dad that he can no longer have his dad as a supplier because his dad was too slow.
Cannot keep up.
No.
Welcome to the Spotlight Podcast. We are filming from our small studio in Nottingham, UK. Today I have a special guest, Professor Xiao Ma from Nottingham Trent University. Professor, welcome to the Spotlight Podcast.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Can you please tell me how you end up in this role? And let us start somewhere from the beginning.
How beginning do you want?
The first thoughts when you have about the education and everything, what was going on in your mind, which direction to take?
I think that's a very interesting question. I think I suffered enough to come to education to some extent. I guess I've always wanted to build my own venture, and in a way, I'm probably foolish enough to believe that every venture I build would be able to change the world. And of course, that's not the case, right? So I think I've failed enough to realize actually it's a very hard journey as an entrepreneur or someone who's tried to change the norm of certain industry. I did have some success. Then I realized actually within my life, I can only do probably a little bit if I'm on my own. But a much better route to kind of go back to, I'd like to change a number of industries to a very different way of performing transactions in that industry, performing a venture in that industry, creating new different kind of values in that industry. The only way I can possibly achieve a greater impact in my own view is to actually have a group of people that shares the same value and shares the same principle.
Exactly.
And almost foolish enough and brave enough, like a lot of us, to try. And that's where I ended up in education, because I think this is the way we can actually get people in a particular platform where we can share similar thoughts. We can help each other to improve how we conduct certain activities. And collectively, we can probably bring changes to a lot of the normality. Then we get to change some of those normalities.
And you finished your bachelor's back home in China?
I did, yes. I did my bachelor's back in Y2K, if you like, in computer science at Beijing Institute of Technology.
Amazing. Yeah. The other day I have an Indian student. They say they right at the beginning, they either medical, non-medical, or engineer. And his mother told him, listen, you're going to be an engineer, get me a diploma, and then you can go and do the hell what you want in your life. You know, he came here to be, to do his master's in IR, international relations. And it's amazing how this goes. So the masters, I saw there was a University of Warwick in your CV.
Yes. So after that degree, and by the way, just dial back. I think it's a very typical wishful mom kind of thing.
Exactly.
My mom's wishes is even weirder. So it depends on the TV episode she's watching. So for a period of time, she was like, "You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a lawyer," because she was watching a TV episode of all the kind of lawsuit and things like that. Then before I realized that I may have a shot in the law kind of a career, she went, "No, you're not going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a doctor," because she was very specific. She wants me to be a doctor in the military because I save lives of the people who fought bravely for people.
It's amazing this type of impact, and our pops they have on our journey. But when I saw one of your presentations, it was an introduction presentation at NTU, and I realized your mother was there. It's kind of funny and nice the way you told her, I apologize, Mom, I haven't become the most influential and the richest man in China, but here I am again, helping entrepreneurs and helping industries to get better.
Yeah, because she's an entrepreneur herself, so I've learned a lot from her, and I think in particular her way of not fear of failure and the perseverance that has penetrated from her spirit.
How important is this, Professor? How important is the fact that we realize that we are in some kind of journey, and it's a trial and error process, and we need to try. It's crucial, especially for the younger generation today.
I think in particular in the context of entrepreneurship these days, probably one of the most prominent methodology is build, measure, learn, and go again. So you probably notice that there's a learning cycle embedded in there already. So they come out and we actually build first, then you try it, then you gather the result, then you learn it and try it again. So that methodology sounds easy, but a lot of the time the method stands alone on its own. It's the people behind who really needs to have the perseverance to not fear of that kind of failure, to be able to stand up again when you're beaten up and go again and try it until the point you succeed. I think I have many cases previously in my own venture and the ventures that I was involved with, or the ventures I was involved with building, to witness that almost the entire network that we've built in the past few years, none of them can get it right in the first shot. Or even if you're lucky enough to get it right in the first shot, the environment changes, the context changes, and sooner or later it goes into a red ocean. Then you would have to adapt yourself to the new market, and you're going to have to try again. And this try and fail and learn again and persevere, then stand up again and do it again, is almost like a vicious circle, but I think that's what makes entrepreneurs entrepreneurs.
It's amazing. I realized that you kind of get a hold on the industry in a very particular way. You were analyzing the tourism market in particular and trying to identify through different kind of SWOT analysis what are the missing major things in the tourism market today, and you identify key players, but you also identified the fact that there was missing human touch. Can you tell me a little bit more about this?
Right. So that was one of the particular cases that we worked with. It's actually probably one of the largest travel agencies in the world, but in a very traditional sense. So they were facing a existential crisis from being threatened by a lot of the online giants, and you can name quite a number of them.
Exactly.
Like Booking.com, the Agoda, the hotel, Airbnb. And Expedia, Airbnb, exactly. So all of those guys. What they are really good at is being able to produce a very low-cost solution and at your fingertip, and you can actually get your hotel, get your flight, get everything very quickly at the cheapest price you can possibly think of, which actually drives the industry to almost like a commodity trading scenario, commoditize the whole travel economy. And it's good, don't get me wrong, because now you get a very cheap travel. But I think one of the things we're always thinking is when we try to change the norm and when we try to build something different, is what are the real value we're creating for the people who actually wants to solve a particular problem. I mean, travel itself sometimes is not about, I mean, in this context, we're not talking about a particular problem. We're talking about what value does it actually create for you and I when we travel. Experience. At the end, when somebody, touch wood, is far away from us. Exactly. When somebody is actually, lying on their dying bed, I think they would probably cherish the memory that they were somewhere with the loved ones doing this and that. They probably wouldn't hate the fact that they spent $100 more on a flight ticket. That's not what they regret for. So for that reason, actually creating that memory is the most value-add element to that industry. Therefore, we're trying to push the solution as close as to value creation. Then you realize actually for a big chunk of that market, the value creation isn't about the cheap deal. It's about the coherence of the experience. It's about creating that loving memory for the people who are traveling together. It's about having the experience of fully enjoy the entire journey, not to worry about I need to handle 20 different vendors of my trip. So when that happens, you realize there's actually a lot of contextualized experience we need to cater for the traveler. Then a computer or a commoditized solution is not going to do that. You actually still need a tour guide. That's
exactly putting a human in the midst of the process could solve the equation of the emotion that we are after here, right?
That's right, and also because of because all these digital platforms, we are at a place where this influencer economy is everywhere. People likes to know where have you been to, what kind of experience did you have, and yes, you and I can share our experience at a different destinations, but a tour guide, a professional tour guide, would be able to correlate that to a lot of different people from the value they really enjoy. So they themselves are actually influencers. So we leverage the digital technology, the micro-influencer economy, and to enable those tour guides, traditional tour guide, to become influencer. They are the ones who can really talk about what you should really get when you're at a particular destination, with the context of you and your family or you and your friends. Therefore, they become the center of the whole network, if you like. And they are the ones who tell their friends and family or the followers what you should go to when you're at a particular place. I.e., if you take, Nottingham as the destination, what should you be really visiting if you are, having a romantic holiday with your loved one? And that kind of context trumps the cheapness of certain commodity.
Exactly.
And therefore, they become the network leader, and they started actually recommending what trips certain people should go for at different destination. And therefore, they started driving the entire travel experience. And at the end, we realized as long as we empower these people to become a better leader of the network, a better leader of the entire tour, they can take this small group of people to go almost everywhere. And that's how they started kind of clawing back the lost battlefield from the online giants, because now they're actually securing the more valuable customer who really appreciates the experience that they create, and they're actually willing to pay a bit more.
When you're talking about this, I'm keep on thinking about the recent book I read, and it was initiated by the public policy program, MSc at NTU, and there was a book, Six Thinking Hats, from Richard de Bono, 23 years old book. And within it, he was describing a way of parallel thinking. There's also one of his separate books. And he said, try to think out of the box. And you can do random things. You can say the number, let's say 95, and then you take a dictionary and go to the 95th page, and then you say another number, and it's, let's say 5, and you see that their word is, let's say, customer. And then you find another word, and you say cheap. Okay, now when you go to the store, you are buying things, you're spending money. What if you go and they give you money for purchasing their things? And then I realized it it was really a fact of influencers. Now you have an influencer that we are paying them. Businesses are paying influencers to purchase their products, to market the way they purchase and use their products, right? A lot of cashback systems. This was 23 years ago. He was developing these type of visionary doctrines.
I think this is, great that you actually brought that on board. I think this is probably one of the key things we found out when we are executing some of the solutions in industry or even educating our own students, is the knowledge. A lot of the knowledge has been created, probably sitting in different domains already, but executing is the hardest thing. We normally talk to our students to say, having an idea is cheap, try execute. It's very, very hard. So going back to that example you were saying, we know that influencers can actually create a very different business model, but being able, as a corporate, being able to let go of your key resources to become a backend support of the influencer. Whatever you support becomes a support mechanism for someone else to even own that customer relationship. It's so counterintuitive. Every other businessman, business school professor will tell you, do not do it, because you lose your customer, because you lose your customer relationship.
Getting back to your academia, can you just briefly give me about the experience in Warwick University and what was going on there? I'm trying to build up the story up to the NTU and the program. I haven't mentioned that you are the leader of the program. And all
right. Well, I have to say a huge thank you to Warwick University. Warwick was the provider of my master's degree, and I also did my PhD in AI at Warwick, where I ended up in a one-of-a-kind organization in Warwick called WMG. And what is unique about that place is we work with industry as our not even second nature, almost like a first nature.
How important was this?
I think this, to some extent, it almost shaped the way that myself and the group of people I'm working with to work. Almost define who we are. And, to the extent, I don't mind share that we run quite a number of research projects, and we run a lot of different kind of projects. Not a single research project or a single research paper was initiated purely from textbook. We always had an industry partner who told us something was wrong in that industry. And all our project was actually informed by industrial partner instead of purely informed by the knowledge base, if you like. So it was a very different approach. At Warwick, I was very much immersed in that kind of environment. So whatever problem we solve, we always need to find out who owns the problem. How do we build a solution that can actually go back and test that solution within the problem context and get the result out? So the minute we start doing that, you are naturally working with the problem owner. Then you're naturally creating impact. So that has shaped a lot of the work that we've done. So at Warwick, because of this principle, we started building a program of research that actually informed by industry to tell us what is going wrong. And once we have the insight, we start building them into our program at Warwick at the time called MSc in Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We were lucky enough and brave enough to build it very differently. That program actually ended up as #1 ranked in the UK by EduUniversal.
Congrats.
Then after the degree, a number of candidates wants to start up because they have actually tested out a minimum viable product during the program, and they really wanted to try to see if they can scale it. So as a natural progression, we also built a professional arm as a venture builder, which at the time we called WMG Accelerator. So we actually had all three arms built at the time in the previous institution. But we didn't have the three teams working as a ecosystem or one or three-in-one mechanism to really make this seamless experience. Going back to the travel industry experience, you really wanted the candidate to come in to go through the whole cycle. And that's when we now established the Center for Business and Industry Transformation. So this center would actually have entrepreneurs or disruptive innovators to come in to actually go through a circle of education, venture building, then research. I can give you many examples of our alumni who's actually gone through it.
PhD in AI topic that we are always interested here in Spotlight Podcast. As a matter of fact, I cannot remember a single episode without mentioning it at least once. Internet is broken. This is something that I've been hearing so many times, and I'm hearing it from you as well. But you also propose a solution. Can you tell me a little bit more about this?
That's right. I think that's, again, another industry-informed research. I think we have to dial back almost 10 years ago when we started working with many businesses to look at why the platform economy didn't work so well. And we, in a norm term, I don't know if we can actually say this via your broadcast, but have you ever considered that there's a lot of services you use that are free, but these people are making money by using some of the data you generated?
Of course.
I.e., a search engine would use your data because they know what you search.
Of course.
And they package those data to generate advertisement insights and sell them to companies, same as some of the social network. So
that's why we cannot exit from the echo chambers all the time. They keep on throwing us the same things.
Absolutely, yes. But not only that, if you think about it, throughout human history, right, no matter what you trade, no matter how tiny the difference is between your service and my service to any other vendor, they would pay us slightly differently on the price. So our effort should be recognized as a service, not in the internet economy as we know it now. In that economy, our effort will recognize the same. We all receive a free service. Then in exchange, we're providing a service, and we appreciate they are free as well. But to some extent, there are two complete cycles going on each side, and someone has not got paid. And that's us, because we're part of the raw material provider. And it's a very clever mechanism to suggest that the benefit we receive is actually greater than the effort we put in. And we seem to consider this as a norm, but this has never existed in any other previous industry. To some extent, many other industries would claim this modern slavery. So we were looking at this from a very different angle. What if the data that people wanted and the intelligence the companies actually wanted can be encapsulated and to be controlled by ourselves? You know how we always think that we're going to go onto a website, and if we want some data, we're going to do a search, we're going to do an API request, we're going to get the information we want. But now, what about we own our data? And what about they come along to do a request of our data in order to match the service we want? And that changed. If we own our own data, it makes us an equal peer of the businesses who wants to harvest data. And we can start a B2B relationship instead of a B2C relationship. And maybe, in a podcast domain, your search values a lot more than mine because you know what people are looking for in podcast. Therefore, search engine should pay you more. And when I talk about entrepreneurship and education, probably my search worth more. Therefore, the search engine should pay me more over that. So the services we provide to the corporate as a raw material should be recognized differently. But if that's the case, then we are all suppliers to certain businesses. And in which case, we could be paid separately. And these businesses are making billions of dollars of profit. So they can share $1 or $2 with each one of us.
Exactly.
And that economy is probably more a clear-cut economy because transaction boundaries are now a lot more clearer. When you define a free service, it's not so clear. I don't know if you remember one of the internet memes, like two pigs were talking to each other. One of them saying that, look at this, pig's factory is so great, we get free food and drink. And the other one was saying that, yes, because we are the product.
Exactly.
I'm afraid in the normal internet economy, you and I are products. And that's why I think we started that research project to look at if we build personal-owned personal data, controlled by ourselves, authenticated by ourselves, and use this to generate intelligence for the internet giants to actually render a service, what would it look like as an ecosystem, as an economic system, as an economic model? And for the service providers, what does it look like for different kind of business models to exist?
It will not be like exchange of data. It will be some different model you're proposing.
You're absolutely right. So it shouldn't be an exchange of data. Well, it could be in some particular cases, but by large, it should be exchange of intelligence, or we call it consumption signals. And the data should be owned by the actual producer of the data, i.e. you and I.
Could you just distinguish a little bit for my audience exactly the term that you just mentioned? What kind of signals you do have in mind?
Let me explain the consumption signal to start with. So Uber wants to sell you rides. Airbnb wants to sell you a hotel, right? But they don't necessarily need your data. What they need is to know what time you want to go from A to B and what kind of ride you want. That's all they need, because they make money from arranging the rides and take you from A to B. They wouldn't make money from knowing your Yanko and your bank account. They would make money by sending you to that journey. But if you think about it, the context of you traveling, needing to travel from A to B is owned by you. You're the only one who can explain and who can produce that signal to say, I will need to go from here to the next destination in 5 minutes on my own. And that might include the triangulation of your calendar, the kind of arrangement you're making with your friends, and the kind of context, how you live your life, whether or not you have a car or you prefer public transportation, or the time constraints you have, therefore you have to go for Uber.
So basically what you're saying is a signal would be way more accurate, and now they're just collecting a whole bunch of data around us that they don't utilize. And even as, for example, if I travel to London and I already booked the room, they keep on throwing these ads for the booking of the rooms in the hotels. They're actually just using extra energy without any special purpose.
Yeah, it's a waste of everyone's resources. It's a waste of a platform traffic. Exactly. It's a waste of electricity, as you said, waste of your time and eyeballing, even by looking at the ads. They can be a lot smarter by saying, you know what, Yanko, because I noticed that you and your friend in London are meeting up. What you probably don't know is actually there's another close friend who's not too far away from you. You could actually meet up with that guy as well. Call the guy. And guess what? If the three of you, judging by where you are and your previous taste, I can even book your restaurant.
So instead of throwing a variety of useless data, they can give us a possible type of AI hints, solve some of our personal problems, and something that the end goal is not purchasing their products.
It's, if I may throw in the term, the huge difference is right now we're searching. I'm a believer that I think with the way that data economy and personal AI is going, when my kids grow up, they would probably struggling to understand or compute what is a Google these days.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we're searching so much, because they're used to matching. If you look at TikTok, a lot of information are matched because of your preference, but that's an easier match. How about a more complex match, as we explained early on? If you have access to your calendar, you do have your access to your calendar, to your social media, to various of contexts that you're creating for your life, then the combination of that, if you assume you have a personal assistant who you are willing to give the access to all of such, your personal assistant can actually create a consumption signal. He or she can, or let's call it for the time being.
Exactly.
It can actually understand what you need next. So it does not need to give out your data. It can request Uber to come along in 5 minutes to send you to somewhere else. It can request a booking service to say, Yanko is going to London this Friday and he's going to meet with his friend A, but B is also next door. Get A and B all together in this particular restaurant. It can arrange that. And it may be AI, but it is actually a generated signal for consumption. All you need is the service providers to match that signal. And that's a very easy match. That match means business. The collection of data means they're going to have to compute. They're going to have to try again. They only have a certain amount of chances to win that business because they don't know if or not you use it. But now, if you give them the signal, guess what? How they know? They know you need that. So the success rate is a lot higher. And also, they don't have to compute. The computer's on your hand. And I've heard people complaining, oh, but, we cannot compute. That's why I'm calling it. It's on your phone. Your phone is strong enough to be able to compute a lot of it. So that was the research project we did. We actually tried to collect a lot of personal data in one place, even online in the cloud as well as on the mobile device to see what we can compute. It turned out we can compute a lot.
You are kind of utilizing this marriage between the AI and business in a variety of ways and trying to help micro and medium-sized businesses to kind of keep up with the pace, with the giants. Can you tell me a little bit more about the how you utilize these advancements in the AI in some concrete industries, in some specific industries, and what are the projects you are kind of overlooking at the moment, and what do you have in pipeline? As much as you can share with us.
Almost because of probably the era we're in, so the majority of the project we are engaged with are actually using AI already. So, for example, one of the latest. We've just got a very generous amount of funding from Innovate UK was to look at how do we automate a supply chain for SME and generalize that methodology for SMEs. What I'm saying is with SMEs trading, in particular the manufacturers who are trying to serve a particular demand, what you get them these days, what they can see is actually how the demand flows and varies from time to time. And because they have to serve different kind of demands, they have to reconfigure their supply chain to fit into it. But once they have the volume of data coming in, once they have access to such data, AI can really help to understand why certain trends are happening. Is there any regularity in this trend change? How do you capture that? Or are you able to capture the trend change ahead of the time and being able to automatically reconfigure your supply chain to make a new product? So when the trends actually arrives, then you're already in a place to sell. So that's, in a nutshell, the kind of project we've just been given to run. So it's actually to predict what the retail market would need in a particular industry and automatically reconfigure their supply chain. So that's just one of the examples. The other example we have is actually for not a so small business and also for actually a lot of large businesses to look at how, I mean, everybody's talking about sustainability.
Exactly.
So we're looking at ESG measurements in particular. So when you look at ESG measurement, a lot of the time it's about ESG auditing. So it costs money. That's why the intention for a lot of companies, let's try to make sure that ESG auditing does not go above the budget allowed because it's cost center activity. But on the other side, we are observing the trend that a lot of the, not we're observing, we're being told, and we also have our own observation with our industry partners that some of the ESG factors can actually create profitability. The better ESG performance you have in a certain area, the more profitable you become. Can that be generalized? Is there a method, or is it possible for us to create a toolkit where every business can almost come in to say, okay, this is me, here's what I can do, and let me reconfigure that toolkit and find out what ESG element that I can do to make my business more profitable.
And efficient.
And more efficient and more sustainable. Therefore, the more ESG compliance you achieve, the more profitable your business become. So you actually make the sustainable into a real sustainable term, including the economic sustainability. And what else can we actually follow up from that point onwards? For those ones who are not performing so good in certain area of ESG measurements, how do we bring them up? So that's another project we're looking at. And again, the analysis of what may work in what industry and the configuration of certain ESG elements into supporting a business model and into calculating the profitability was done by machines because we have so many, data and so many different cases. So that a machine can do that job a lot faster than us.
Are the entrepreneurs that you correspond with on a daily basis, are they kind of keen to understand the new mechanisms and how they can utilize AI to, effectively tackle the challenges?
The network that we're in, the entrepreneurial network we've built, they are all very active. So every time we talk about AI, it's almost impossible to shut people up.
So this episode is going to be very popular.
So, like the use of, you were talking about every episode must feature ChatGPT. So not only ChatGPT, we're on the notions of, Claude, the Perplexity, the GPTs these days, and quite a number of our entrepreneurs are already using a variety of them to achieve different things, including automatic interviews to be able to analyze their staff recruitment performances. Some of them doing e-marketing, and I was talking about personal data economy. One of our kind of flagship entrepreneur who's actually secured millions of dollars to build personal assistant is right in this space already.
It's amazing. I've seen it on TikTok. Some youngster made should I say reels or shorts, in a way saying how they hacked the system for recruitment. Basically, they were writing, maybe you've seen it, they were writing the CVs in PDFs, and right beneath the name and the general information, he wrote, this is your guy, and then turn the colors of the letters to white to match the background. So basically, it's not recognizable to the human eye. So he got invited so many times for the interviews. So basically he said, I hacked the system, AI-based systems, ChatGPT for recruitment was generating that this was a good candidate for your business.
We do have I think among the networks and among the kind of, our way of thinking, we do have a general understanding that kind of a common kind of consensus that, where AI would help or would not help us so much. We come across a lot of people saying, oh, AI is going to replace this, AI is going to replace that. And we kept saying, and we kept emphasizing among ourselves, no, AI is not going to replace you and I. It's another Yanko who uses better AI. It's going to replace this Yanko. It's another Xiao who uses better AI.
Exactly.
It's going to replace this Xiao. So the amount of supervision is still needed, and the creativity that we can put on top of what we do is far beyond what a lot of technology can achieve just yet. I'm not saying the future is not coming, but I think the future is, being an AI scientist myself, I think future is still quite a few steps away from what people may think the future is, yeah.
I can tell you myself, I've tried everything,
right?
All the softwares available at the moment, Mid-Journey and one connected to the AI, I cannot, to the OpenAI, I cannot remember the name of the brand. They cannot even
DALL-E?
Yeah. Cannot even come close. For example, I'm producing a lot of thumbnails, even for my private channel and for the YouTube channel of the Spotlight podcast. They cannot come close to my designers back home in Serbia and Montenegro that I kind of outsource these services. So they're good. They're good to the certain point, but we are still not there.
Well, this is actually a really good point, and that's exactly where I see some of these tools really helps entrepreneurship. If we dial back to entrepreneurship, I'm hearing a lot of noise from the educational circle whether or not students should be using AI. What is allowed? What is not allowed? For us, at least for my program, every student must use AI, and you must use AI almost as your benchmark level to write a piece of thesis or a piece of dissertation that you wanted to write. Reason being that that's almost the everyday level. If your performance is at par with AI, in today's environment, you're close to fail. You have to perform better. So exactly as you said, if AI can produce imagery, and any visual designer, if your design is similar to the AI level, then you're not doing a good job.
Definitely.
But I think what it means for entrepreneurs is we come across a lot of the entrepreneurs, in particular the inventor type, who's really keen on key technology and being able to produce some coolest product ever. But one thing missing in between is, what problem does it actually solve? There is a product, but may or may not even solve any problem. So it's just a thing in its own existence. But because of AI and the large language model actually trolls the internet, trolls the knowledge space so well. So it does understand, it does produce a common understanding of a lot of the markets. And those are really good intelligence for entrepreneurs to establish your baseline. So anything you build below that understanding is not going to sell. Yeah. So anything you build above that understanding may stand a chance.
Maybe marketable, yeah.
And you can start working from that point onwards. Previously, without these tools, we have to put in effort to bring this benchmark to our community to say, hey, this is your benchmark. But now AI does that job for us. So everyone knows where the benchmark is.
Exactly. And it's accessible to everyone.
Yep.
I will kind of give you a chance, shout out to the program. Let's promote the program at NTU you are leader of.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the program. Tell me a little bit more about the tools you brought from various of your educations, especially in Warwick University, and what do you guys do at the moment at NTU?
So the program we have is called Master in Business Transformation. So this is a upgraded version from the previously UK #1 ranked entrepreneurship program. So we have a very specific target group of people we're looking at. So we're looking at 4 different kind of people, and they would benefit the most. So we're looking at, i.e. a family business successor, sons and daughters, second generations, or a senior executive to take the baton of existing business. We're looking at serial entrepreneurs who wanted to scale one of the ventures really fast. We're looking at inventors who has got a product sitting in hand but find it hard to market, and we're looking for corporate entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in a way, whereby you actually have a lot of resource behind, and you can see the industry suffers from certain problems.
But you don't know how to help yourself.
But you don't know how to address that. But you do have a lot of knowledge of knowing that you can, and yet you just need to put the resources together. So
out of these 4 groups, what do you see it's prevailing one within the current program?
I would say it's actually the family business successor.
Exactly.
So what's the most interesting from that is we teach very differently. So our modules, every one of them is a 5-day sprint. So you're almost like working in a technology business. In one of my previous ventures, you're doing a 5-day sprint. And we don't actually teach a lot of content, if you like. Because again, I mean, we're doing a podcast, and you mentioned somebody who wrote a book, and I work with some of the very good academics who's the father or mother of a particular theory. They can teach on YouTube. Who am I to teach the same theory where the birth parents are there to teach the theory themselves? So I think knowledge acquisition is not something we can teach these days anymore. However, as I said, at this level, the adoption of that knowledge, the utilization of that knowledge in a particular context is actually harder. The execution is a lot harder. So we create an environment for people to execute. So we teach them how to fish instead of give them a fish. So they must try. And we create an environment where they can fail safely before the failure becomes too expensive. So it's more of experience of how you conduct such business transformation than the kind of knowledge you need to know. We never ever wanted to create a all-in-one business professional. We wanted to create someone, as I dial back to what I said before, who can actually fall in love with the problem, be persevering, and not fearful for failure, and being able to try again. So that's the kind of mindset we really want to teach. Or, in a more common terms, people call them growth mindset. So we're trying to use a number of mechanisms to get that through. And going back to why that group is really interesting, I think that group has got a double whip. The first whip is they have a family business, so they would like to make that business more successful. And most likely, if we follow any of the theory, there is a growth curve of any business. At a certain level, the business will reach red ocean, and if they continue as the way it is, they're going to go down. Gaussian. Yeah, so they're going to have to spin off in a different format, and that's where they come in. And secondly, this is the perfect moment for them to come in, because we witness a lot of them don't get along with the first generation of entrepreneurs. They need the mom and dad does not give them the approval of what they can do yet. And yet, actually, a lot of the thinking they have is so different to mom and dad, and actually a lot of them can prove the new way of thinking, the new way of doing things can actually trump the previous set business. I mean, as an example, if you look at some of the stats, the average, out of my mind, I think the average US citizen 100 years ago, their life expectancy was less than 70 years of age. And the S&P 500 was more than 70 years of age. And today, the average life expectancy of US citizen is much more than 70 years old, I think close to 80. And have a guess of the S&P 500 companies.
I have no clue.
It's below 18. So they're all young kids. So that's how fast businesses are growing and businesses are failing. So this is where I think that particular group and the kind of group that we engage with is very, very interesting, because they are the ones sitting at the forefront of bringing changes in such environment. The company I was referring to, who was actually doing this AI project on supply chain, he started out trying to become a reseller of his father's business as for the goods that his father manufactured. Then later on, he became a brand owner to start designing his own thing. A few years back, I think it was probably one of the most enjoyable conversation he had with his dad, but probably one of the saddest thing he had with his dad as a conversation-wise is he told his dad that he can no longer have his dad as a supplier because his dad was too slow.
Cannot keep up.
No.
Professor Xiao, two more questions. One, what's in pipeline for you regarding the career, as much as you can share with us, and some basic message to all the students, maybe these ones who were thinking what to do, what industry to maybe get into, some kind of message to young people, to some young Xiao today that is thinking somewhere in China, what could be a possibility for them academically and professionally?
Right. I think that's a lot of questions. Right. I'll try to address them in two folds. So one is, what's in our pipeline.
You were also working with the British Council, and they were also...
they also fund... The more sustainable and more profitable business model innovation was actually funded by British Council.
Almost 5 million in few projects, I guess, total.
In a few research projects altogether. So in our pipeline, what we're really looking for is actually, we're looking for a particular pattern for those traditional businesses who are not really embracing the data economy to become a data-driven business. So what I meant is, again, one of our flagship project is in smart farming. So we're looking at reshaping the entire value chain of smart animal farming and to make them more animal friendly, make them more environmental friendly, try to change the labor conditions as well. And I'm very proud that these are actually being tackled already. The reason why we can't publish is because these are at the forefront of some of the execution, and there's a huge amount of commercial sensitivity.
Of course.
What we're seeing as a trend is certain business like farming are now becoming heavy loaded with a lot of data. They are very smart. They are no longer the farming industry as we know. So the kind of labor who works in those industries are technologists instead of normal farming. The government funding needs to go into that in a very different trajectory, which is being done as well. The kind of product we produce, the productivity is so high, and they are a lot more environmental friendly. And these are being produced as well. So a lot of such opportunities exist, and we're really looking for a lot of new companies who share these problems with us so that we can actually get on this journey together to influence how that industry works, to build a new business model out of these businesses and actually change the industry norm as we normally like to do. So that is the focus of looking at who are not yet in data economy, but is so close to become a data economy driven business. So I would say smart farming, personal data economy, platform economy, bioengineering, a number of the key areas we're looking at. In terms of message, I think... Message
to some young Xiao at the moment,
right.
Thinking about what are the options. Our outro is around 2 minutes, so you have 2 minutes.
All right. Less than that. I can give you 20 seconds. I think message, 3 phrases. One is to cherish the problem. Let me explain. To fall in love with the industry problem, not to fall in love with the solution you have. Because if you fall in love with the problem, you will always have a better solution. If you fall in love with the solution, you end up with one solution. So that's the first message. Second message is be rebellious and change the norm. The normality may or may not be the best. Most of the time, normality would become one of the problems over time. So trying to change the norm would keep the mind sharp and also make sure that you're always considering a better solution to try to give yourself the competitive advantage. The last thing is probably build, measure, and learn. Fail and try again. So as long as you wanted to do that, as long as you're used to do it, having that mindset of perseverance, you'll be okay.
Professor Xiao, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I know it's a busy schedule, and I hope I'm going to see you in some new occasions to deliberate about some new projects.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure to be able to come into your podcast and being able to share some of the work we've done from the Center for Business and Industry Transformation to your audience. And I would love to hear from the audience, and I would love to have another catch up with you soon.
Thank you so much again.